Have you ever wanted something so deeply, so desperately, that you were convinced it had to be God's will, only to watch it slip through your fingers? We've all had moments when what we prayed for didn't happen, when what we planned fell apart, and when what we thought was beautiful ended up breaking our hearts. But what if the disappointment wasn't a sign of God's rejection, but of His protection? What if the thing you begged Him for was too small for the kind of future He's preparing? What if the perfect plan you held on to was nothing compared to the masterpiece He wanted to unveil? God's plans rarely look like ours, and they often arrive in ways that confuse the mind before they bless the soul. His ways are like a sunrise, slow, subtle, gentle. Yet once the light breaks through, you realize the night was never meant to last. Sometimes God lets something crumble because He knows the structure underneath wasn't strong enough. Sometimes He closes a door because He saw what you couldn't. Sometimes He withholds what you wanted because He's shaping something far more beautiful than what you had in mind. You may feel delayed, but you're not denied. You may feel disappointed, but you're not forgotten. You may feel like life is falling apart, but God is quietly piecing together something far greater than your desire. And sooner than you think, you'll look back and say, "Thank you, Lord, for not giving me what I wanted. You gave me what was better." Have you ever noticed how our hearts can get attached to a plan long before we even fully understand it? How we cling to what we think is best, even if it's breaking us, draining us, or quietly pulling us away from who God is shaping us to become. We don't do it because we're stubborn. We do it because we're human. Because desire is powerful. When we want something deeply, it feels impossible to imagine anything better. And when God interrupts it, delays it, or redirects it, it can feel like we're being denied instead of being protected. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've prayed for something you truly believed was right for you, but it didn't happen. Maybe you were sure a relationship was the one, but it fell apart. Maybe you just knew that opportunity, job, dream, or breakthrough was yours, until God closed the door so hard it left you breathless. And in those moments, it's easy to whisper, "Lord, why? Why did you let this slip through my fingers? Why didn't you let it happen? Why does your plan look so different from my desire?" But here's the truth most of us don't want to admit. We judge God's plan based on what we feel right now. God designs His plan based on what He sees forever. We make decisions from the pain of the moment. God makes decisions from the perspective of eternity. We think in days. God thinks in destinies. We focus on what feels good. God focuses on what makes us whole. And this is where the tension begins. We want His promises, but we want them delivered our way. We pray for His will, but often what we really mean is, "Lord, let your will look like what I want." We say we trust Him, but we still keep a backup plan just in case He takes too long. And yet, God never gives us the lesser story. Not once. He never settles. He never improvises. He never says, "Well, this wasn't my best, but let me give you something close enough." No. Every time, whether we understand it or not, He gives us the plan that will lead to the most growth, the most healing, the most joy, the most purpose, the most beauty, and the most eternal impact. You see, when our desires don't align with His plan, the clash doesn't mean He's punishing us. It means He's rescuing us. He's not withholding something good. He's protecting something better. He's not delaying your life. He's building your foundation. He's not ignoring your prayers. He's shaping your future. And this is where so many believers get discouraged. We mistake God's not yet as never. We misunderstand God's closed door as rejection instead of redirection. We assume His silence means abandonment, when it actually means orchestration. Sometimes God lets the things you desire fall apart so the things He designed can fall into place. That breakup, you thought it was the end of your story, but heaven saw it as the beginning of your healing. That missed opportunity, You felt like you failed, but God was moving you toward an assignment that requires a different room, different people, and a different version of you. That unanswered prayer, you thought God overlooked you, but he was preparing an answer bigger, deeper, richer, and more meaningful than what you asked for. Because what you wanted was good. But what God planned is beautiful. And maybe right now you feel stuck in the middle, between desire and destiny, between what you wanted and what God is building. Maybe you're in the confusing part of the story where nothing makes sense yet, where the things you hoped for haven't happened and the things you didn't expect are unfolding all around you. If that's you, listen closely. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being carried by a God who writes stories far more beautiful than anything you could desire. And here's the part we often forget. When God's plan finally unfolds, when the pieces come together, when the timing aligns and the purpose becomes clear, you will look back and say, "Lord, thank you for not giving me what I wanted. Thank you for giving me what I needed." This is where your heart begins to rest, when you realize that God's plan doesn't compete with your desire. It completes it. It elevates it. It transforms it into something eternally meaningful. So as we move forward, I want you to hold one truth close. If God didn't give you what you desired, it's because he's preparing something more beautiful than you can imagine. And when it arrives, you won't regret a single delay, a single detour, or a single closed door. When we talk about God's plan being more beautiful than our desires, we're not speaking in poetic language. We are speaking in biblical reality. Scripture is full of people who wanted something now, something smaller, something easier, while God was preparing something far greater, far richer, far more purposeful than they could have imagined. Think of Isaiah 55:8-9, where God says, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." He's not saying your desires are wrong. He's saying his desires for you are higher. His plans stretch beyond the limits of what your heart even knows how to ask for. God isn't rejecting your desire. He's completing it in a way that only eternity understands. Or consider Jeremiah 29:11, one of the most quoted verses in the Bible, not because it's simple, but because it reveals the heart of a father who is always thinking ahead of you. "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." The key phrase is, "I know the plans." Most of the time, we don't. We know our preferences, our timelines, our dreams, but only God knows the plan. And it's his plan, not our desire, that leads to lasting joy. Look at Ephesians 3:20. "Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we ask or think." God doesn't stop at your prayers, he surpasses them. He doesn't limit himself to your desire, he transcends it. You pray for enough strength to survive the storm, and he gives you the power to walk on the waves. Pray for a door to open, and he builds you a whole hallway. You pray for healing in one area, and he restores your entire life from the inside out. One of the most powerful pictures of this truth is found in the story of Joseph. Joseph desired freedom, restoration, and fairness. But God's plan was far greater, to position him second in command of Egypt, to preserve nations, to save his family, and to turn betrayal into destiny. Joseph wanted to get out of the pit. God wanted to put him in the palace. What Joseph desired was good, but what God planned was glorious. Or consider Ruth. She desired simply survival, food, shelter, safety. But God was preparing a future far beyond survival. He led her to Boaz, connected her to destiny, and wrote her into the lineage of King David and ultimately Jesus Christ. Her desire was stability. God's plan was legacy. And then there's Peter. His desire was to avoid the cross. He even fought against the very thing Jesus came to fulfill. But God's plan was salvation for the entire world. Peter didn't understand it then, but later he would preach the gospel with fire, knowing that God's plan was always far more beautiful than human desire could ever comprehend. But the greatest example is Jesus in Gethsemane. Jesus prayed, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." That was his human desire, the honest, raw, vulnerable cry of a suffering heart. Yet he surrendered. "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." And through that surrender, the most beautiful plan in all of eternity unfolded. Redemption, resurrection, salvation, and everlasting victory. And here's what all these stories teach us. God's plan rarely looks beautiful at the beginning, but it always becomes beautiful in the end. It often begins with confusion, silence, broken pieces, and unexpected twists. But that's because God builds with eternal purpose, not temporary satisfaction. He writes with divine wisdom, not emotional impulses. He leads with a long-term vision, not short-term comfort. When God withholds something you desire, it is not rejection. It is protection. It is redirection. It is preparation. When God delays something, it is not punishment. It is development. It is alignment. When God closes a door, it is not cruelty. It is sovereignty, positioning, and grace in disguise. Every time God says no or not yet, he is saying, "I have something more beautiful than what you're asking for." This is why Proverbs 16:9 says, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." Your desires draw the sketch. God paints the masterpiece. Your prayers build the frame. God fills it with glory. Your dreams give the outline. But God finishes the picture with colors you never imagined. And when the plan unfolds, when the pieces come together, when the story finally makes sense, you won't wish for what you asked for. You'll thank God for what He gave instead. When we talk about God's plan being far more beautiful than our desire, the Bible is not silent. It is overflowing with real stories of real people whose desires were sincere. Yet God's plan was far greater, far deeper, far more magnificent than anything they would have chosen for themselves. Their lives prove that what looks like disappointment is often divine direction, and what feels like a setback is actually the stage for something supernatural. Joseph never desired a pit. He never prayed for betrayal. He never asked for a prison cell. His desire was simple: fulfill the dream God gave him. But God's plan, far bigger. Joseph would have settled for a peaceful life at home, but God planned to raise him as a ruler in Egypt, preserve nations, save his family, and place him in a position that no desire or ambition could have reached. Imagine Joseph crying out in the darkness of the pit, wondering why God allowed his brother's hatred. Imagine him walking into slavery confused, heartbroken, believing perhaps his dream was a mistake. Imagine the cold nights in that prison cell when he questioned everything he ever heard from heaven. Yet, while Joseph saw only confusion, God saw completion. While Joseph saw loss, God saw alignment. While Joseph saw betrayal, God saw positioning. His desire was to survive the storm. God's plan was to make him the solution to a famine. And when Joseph finally stood as second in command to Pharaoh, looking into the faces of the very brothers who betrayed him, he finally understood what you and I must also understand. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. Not symbolically, not poetically, literally. Joseph learned that God's plan is never to give you what you want, but what you were created for. Ruth desired one thing: a stable, peaceful life with her husband. But tragedy stole that dream. Death shattered her expectations. Loss tore apart her future. Everything she built collapsed in a single moment. But God's plan began where her desire ended. Ruth had no idea that clinging to Naomi would link her life to a lineage she could not even imagine. She thought she was following love and loyalty. God knew she was walking straight into destiny. Ruth simply desired survival. God planned significance. She wanted a field to glean in. God planned Boaz, redemption, restoration, inheritance. She wanted food for the day. God planned to place her in the genealogy of King David, and ultimately, in the lineage of Jesus Christ. Ruth's story screams this truth. What you think is the end is often the beginning of God's masterpiece. Her heartbreak became the doorway to her harvest. Her loss became the soil for her legacy. Her why God became the stage for look at God. Moses never desired leadership. He never desired a platform. He never desired to confront Pharaoh. Moses wanted one thing: to stay hidden in the wilderness, unnoticed and undisturbed. But God's plan was far bigger than Moses' comfort zone. Moses thought his failure disqualified him. God saw his humility and said, "Now you are ready." Moses desired silence. God planned deliverance. Moses desired obscurity. God planned to use him to split seas, challenge empires, and change history. Moses looked at himself and saw weakness. God looked at Moses and saw his power waiting to be revealed. Moses thought he was unworthy of the plan. But God never asked Moses to be worthy, only willing. And what happened? A shepherd became a liberator. A stutterer became a spokesman. A wanderer became a world changer. Moses' small desire for peace became God's mighty plan for purpose. Mary desired a simple life, marriage, family, stability. But God's plan, eternity-shaping, world-changing, miraculous. When the angel appeared, Mary didn't say, "I desire to be the mother of the Messiah," and she simply said, "Let it be unto me according to your word." Her desire was for a normal life. God planned a supernatural one. Her desire was for a quiet home in Nazareth. God planned her name to echo through generations as the vessel chosen for Emmanuel. Her desire was good. God's plan was glorious. Mary became the physical doorway through which salvation entered the world, not because she planned it, but because she trusted God when his plan made no sense. Look at each story. Joseph, Ruth, Moses, Mary. None of them received what they desired, but they received something greater, what God designed. Their lives show us God's plan rarely looks like your desire. God's plan often begins with disappointment. God's plan frequently unfolds through the unexpected. God's plan always leads to something far more beautiful than you imagined. And perhaps this is what God is whispering to you right now. I am not denying you. I am directing you. I am not ignoring your desire. I am elevating it. I am not ruining your plans. I am revealing mine. The pattern of Scripture teaches one truth. When God rewrites your desire, he replaces it with destiny. Joseph didn't desire a throne. Ruth didn't desire a legacy. Moses didn't desire a mission. Mary didn't desire a miracle pregnancy. Yet God's plan outshined their desires every single time. And he can do the same for you. When you finally reach that moment where you whisper, "God, I trust your plan more than I trust my own," something shifts in the spiritual realm. You move from striving to surrender, from forcing to flowing, from anxiety to assurance. But trusting God's plan doesn't mean sitting still and folding your arms. It means partnering with heaven through your decisions, your posture, and your perspective. So here are the practical steps, not theories, not cliches, but real spiritual disciplines that teach your heart to follow God, even when your desire is screaming for control. 1. Release the timeline you built in your mind. Every one of us has a mental calendar, a quiet expectation of when things should happen. I thought I'd be married by now. I thought I'd be further in life by now. I thought the door would open already. But God rarely works inside the deadlines we design. Why? Because his timing is tied to transformation, not frustration. When you feel discouraged because things are taking too long, pause and remind yourself, Delays are often God's protection, not punishment. Sit before Him and literally say aloud, "Lord, I release my timeline. I choose your timing instead of mine." Your spirit cannot rest until your timeline is surrendered. 2. Replace "Why, God?" with "Lead me, God." Questions drain faith, but surrender multiplies it. You may not understand why the relationship didn't last, why the opportunity fell apart, or why the answer hasn't come. But God is not asking you to understand. He's asking you to follow. The shift comes when you stop interrogating God and start inviting God instead of, "Why did you let this happen?" Say, "Lead me through what happened. Show me what I couldn't see before." One posture isolates you, the other posture positions you. When you begin to say, "God, you are my guide," you will be amazed how the fog begins to lift. 3. Practice surrendered patience instead of passive waiting. Waiting is not sitting on the sidelines hoping something magically changes. Waiting is active trust. It is living like you believe God is working because He is. How do you do this practically? You keep showing up. You keep praying. You keep preparing. You keep doing the small things with big faith. If you're believing for a job, you refine your skills. If you're believing for healing, you build your spiritual and physical strength. If you're believing for restoration, you cultivate the character that can sustain reconciliation. God blesses preparation. Sometimes He withholds what you desire until you become the person who can honor it. 4. Invite God to transform your desires, not just fulfill them. One of the most beautiful mysteries of walking with God is that the closer you get to Him, the more your desires begin to change. Suddenly, the thing you thought you wanted no longer satisfies you. The thing you begged for years ago no longer fits the season you're stepping into. The path you once desired now feels too small for the calling God is awakening within you. Ask God in prayer, "Lord, reshape my desires so they align with your will. Redirect my cravings to match your calling." True peace is not found in getting what you want, but in wanting what God gives. 5. Stop comparing your season to someone else's harvest. Comparison will suffocate your trust faster than anything else. You will never recognize the beauty of God's plan for your life if you're constantly staring at someone else's. Their timing is not your timing. Their route is not your route. Their blessing is not your blessing. What God is building in you may require more time, deeper roots, and stronger patience, because the calling on your life carries a different weight. When you see someone else thriving, don't ask, "When is it my turn?" Instead say, "God, thank you for showing me what you're capable of. If you did it for them, I know you can do it for me, in your perfect time." 6. Remember that God's no is often a divine "not that, I have something better." Some of the greatest blessings you will ever receive will come disguised as disappointments. The closed door that hurt you the most. The opportunity that slipped away. The relationship that collapsed. These are often the very things God removes to protect the promise He planned. Look back at your life. Think of all the things you once begged God to give you, and now you're grateful He didn't. That alone should give you confidence for the future. God sees what you cannot see. His no is not rejection. It is redirection towards something more beautiful than you even knew to ask for. 7. Celebrate small signs of God's faithfulness while you wait for the big reveal. God rarely shows the whole plan at once. He gives hints, breadcrumbs, confirmations, little reminders that He is near and active. A word that speaks directly to your heart. A door you weren't expecting. A peace you can't explain. A strength you didn't have yesterday. Celebrate these tiny, holy moments. Why? Because gratitude opens the door to clarity, and joy prepares your heart for fulfillment. 8. Boldly declare, "God, Your plan is better. I trust you. There is power in speaking it. Your heart follows your words. Your faith follows your declarations. Every time fear tries to rise, every time impatience tries to steal your peace, every time the enemy whispers that God forgot you, lift your voice and declare, God, your plan is more beautiful than my desire. I trust you completely. Say it until your spirit believes it. Say it until heaven hears it. Say it until peace replaces pressure. When you begin to walk in these practices, something shifts inside of you. You stop fearing the unknown and start trusting the one who holds the unknown. You stop clinging to your plan and start resting in his. That's when you finally begin to see it. What God has been building behind the scenes is far more beautiful than anything you ever asked for. When everything is said and done, when the dust settles, when the tears dry, when the confusion slowly begins to part like clouds after a storm, one truth remains unshakable, immovable, and eternally trustworthy. God's plan was never just better. It was always more beautiful than anything you could have asked or imagined. You may not see it now. You may not feel it now. You may not even believe it in this moment. But God does not ask you to understand his plan. He asks you to trust it. Because trusting God is not trusting what you see. It is trusting who he is. You serve a God who never wastes a moment of your life. A God who sees the full picture while you're staring at a single broken piece. A God who works in layers, seasons, and divine timing, orchestrating details you don't even know exist yet. And I know, waiting is hard, surrender is hard, letting go of your preference is hard. But hear this truth, your desire was limited by your perspective. God's plan is shaped by his omniscience. You wanted what you thought was best. God prepared what he knew was best. You prayed for what made sense. God arranged what makes destiny. You asked him to open the door you could see. He was preparing the palace you didn't know to ask for. Every time you thought something was falling apart, God was quietly causing it to fall into place. Every time you thought your life was delayed, heaven was ensuring that you arrived right on time. Every time you thought God said no, he was actually saying, I have something more beautiful than this. And now, he is gently reminding you, my child, you will thank me later for the doors I closed, just as much as you thank me for the ones I opened. Because God is not just protecting you, he is positioning you. He is not just withholding something, he is preparing something. He is not just rewriting your story, he is elevating it. And your job is not to figure everything out. Your job is to stay surrendered, stay faithful, stay open, stay expectant. And trust that the God who wrote creation with flawless precision is also writing your story with the same brilliance. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You did not miss your moment. You are in the middle of God's craftsmanship. And even if the path twists, even if it looks unclear, even if it feels delayed, your Father is guiding you towards something far more beautiful, meaningful, and destiny-shaping than anything you could have desired for yourself. So lift your head, straighten your shoulders, breathe deep, and step forward. Because God's plan for you is unfolding, quietly, powerfully, perfectly. And when it fully reveals itself, you will say through tears of joy, Lord, this is why the other things didn't work out. This is what you were preparing me for. This was always more beautiful. Your desire was good, but God's plan, it was glorious, it was divine, it was worth every moment of waiting. And now, walk in peace, walk in trust, walk in confidence. For the God who made the heavens is the same God who is making something beautiful out of your life.